Hey YouTube, what's up? It's your girl Dr. J, and I thought I would do a quick video, but y'all know my videos are never quick, on what I'm doing with my second graders, the Wonder Twins, for reading. I've told you guys in the past that we were using Easy Read. It is an online program based out of the UK, and we're still with that. They are about 2/3 of the way finished with the program. It was great for helping to increase their fluency, but I still wanted to make sure that I did a little bit more of an intensive phonics program with them, especially to help with spelling, and also being dyslexics. They really needed a bit more explicit discussion when it came to the phonetic rules that we have in the English language, as well as the spelling rules that we have, and those sort of things that tend to be more intuitive for children who aren't dyslexic. They're not really intuitive for dyslexic children, so I wanted to make sure I did a really intentional program with them. So what we're using is Reading Horizons, and this is volume 1 book, and then there's a volume 2 book that we're going to next, and it also has a Sound Essentials book that goes along with it, and this just houses things like games and assessments and mastery checks and those sort of things. My eldest is actually doing this program online. He's doing the adult version. They have a version for like 9 to adult. And then the Wonder Twins are doing this version, and it is for kids in K through 3rd grade. I really like it because it understands that a lot of times when you have children that are dyslexic, they're going to be doing phonetic instruction, into the 2nd grade and 3rd grade and beyond. And so what it does that I really like is that it also combines, in addition to just straight phonics and spelling, it also has grammar that's embedded in the program so that the kids don't actually get behind, even if they're still working on some of the phonics type instruction. Now, you guys know I never use a program exactly the way that it's designed, so I'll show you some supplements and additional things that I add into it. But I wanted to show you some of the things that we're using. This is Salamander's workbook or notebook that we're using with the program, and Faster Fox has a book too. But some of the things that you use with the program, I put it into their notebook. These are sound cards. And sound cards are basically where you give the child a card and you go over the sound that the letter makes, and then there's a specific cards for each of the different vowel sounds, so that they can, it really is a reminder that the letter A, it makes multiple different sounds. But in this program, you start with A, making the A sound. And what we do when we go over letters, my kids, they're all using the builder letters. I showed you guys the big box of builder letters. And I use these where they actually use these little pieces, not little, they're huge pieces, to build the letters. And as you guys can see, if you're familiar with handwriting without tears at all, these are similar to the types of blocks that they use in handwriting without tears, but instead of it focusing on the handwriting, we just focus on the constructing the aspect of it. The reason why I do that is because, again, since my kids are dyslexic, we really want to work on ensuring that they got those reversals out of their system. And I found that doing it kinesthetically, a hands-on approach, having them construct the upper and lowercase letters, that really helped them to understand explicitly how those letters were supposed to go. And that's really helping us to cut down on the reversals of B and D, as well as P and Q. So we're doing the build, and then they also have most common words. The reason why they do most common words is, as we're working our way through the program, they do a letter by letter introduction and sound by sound introduction of the vowel sounds. But they want to get the kids on the road to reading as quickly as possible. And so in order to read stories with meaning, they had to introduce some words out of the sequence in which they were learning the letters. And so we have these cards. These are some cards, and a lot of these words my kids actually knew already before we started this year, but it's great for spelling. What I did was to integrate this program into their Easy Read program. Is Easy Read, guys know, is character based, and so I put the Easy Read way that we would sound out the word on the back of the card. So that's the, ed. Oh, wait, ed. So they will see that. And then we have it on this way, and it's all backwards. I'm looking into this thing and seeing mirror images. But so this is the sound cards, and we put the easy read card that I printed out on cardstock on the back of those. And so we have these, and they go through these to make sure they know all the most common words for letters that we're not to yet. Things like mother, father, put, is, all those kind of good ones. And some of the pages that we do, the way that it works is you'll introduce a letter. I'm going to show you guys a page. So this was, introducing the letter B. So we practiced writing the letter B, and then they practiced the slide. So sliding B and A together to make the ba sound. And then as we went past those kind of initial letters, you get to more of the words. And so they have a marking system. So when you're just practicing a sound, you do the slide. So H-E would say he. But then when you do a word like him, you mark the vowel. And the reason why they teach students to mark the vowel is because the vowel is going to tell you, finding the vowel lets you know how the word is going to be pronounced and also how the word is going to be spelled. So the first thing they teach is marking the vowel. Find where that vowel is, and then you build from there. And you mark the vowels all the way through a word. So as we get to silent E, like Speedster, he's already to the point in the program where they're teaching him how silent E works and all that other sort of stuff. So that's been really, really helpful. One of the things that I do is, as we do each letter, we read books from the Alpha Tales books. Now, we've read these before, and I don't do these for the letter itself. I do it for the story because I add in reading comprehension as a part of this. So what they'll do, get to one of his pages. That'll be very easy to explain. So this story, this was the Jeremy and Jim. So this was a story for Jay. So what we do is we'll read the story for Jay in the Alpha Tales book, and it was Jeremy and Jungleberry Jam. And so Salamander will draw a picture, and then he will summarize the story. So, and I'll write it out for him. So that's my messy handwriting. So I will write out his summary, and his summary tend to be pretty long summaries. And like I had to actually start writing much smaller and putting 2 lines into the paragraph, just because he was giving me such a thorough summary. He was summarizing an entire story. And so he'll do the summary on the front, where I'll dictate his summation. So here's, like, for instance, here's a summary that he recently did. I took that. And then on the back of the piece of paper, I'll ask him Bloom's taxonomy questions based on the story. And his answers have been really, really good. Another thing that we've started to do is we've started to use the dictionary. So one of the things, for instance, one word this week was, or last week was bog. And so both the twins said, well, what is a bog? And so instead of just telling them the answer, I had them look it up in the dictionary. So they looked the word up in the dictionary, and then they wrote out the definition. This was them writing out in their own handwriting. So he is a perfectionist. So he wrote the definition, and then he scratched it out and then rewrote it. So bog, an area of soft, wet earth. And then he drew a picture of what he thought a bog would look like. And so that's what we're doing. That's one of the ways that we're adding in language arts into our reading program. So even though they're dyslexic, even though we're still on phonics, they're gifted dyslexics. So they need to be going ahead in kind of their more thorough understanding of language arts in general. Again, this is another reason why I really like the program. Even as we're doing phonics, like we haven't even gone through all of the letters of the alphabet yet, but they're already teaching things like plurals and possessives. And so this is work that he did. This is his own handwriting, where they had to, first we talked about what makes a word plural and what makes a word possessive. And then they had to read the sentences, and they read the sentences on their own, and then they decided which word should go in there. Should it be the word that shows whether or not it's possessive? And then up here, they had to make the word plural on their own. So they had to decide, do you use S or do you use apostrophe S? So that's some of the stuff that we did, or they did. Another thing that they have learned already is sentence writing. I'm going to try to find a page in here where they did writing of sentences. And if I can't find it quickly, I'll just explain. Oh, here's one. Here's another one where they learned subject and predicate. So this is where they had to identify, read the sentence, and they had to read the sentences independently. And then they had to underline the subject, and they had to put a box around the predicate. So again, this is phonics instruction, but it's giving them really, really high level work so that they don't concentrate so much on learning phonics that they are behind when it comes to where they should be as far as grammar. It introduced things like capitalization. So they worked on capitalization, and they found it, they did fine with it. And also they worked on things like when to use a comma. So those have been really, really great ways that we've been using the program, and I've really been happy with it because it's a thorough program. So in addition to teaching giving explicit instruction in reading and spelling, it also allows for us to go ahead in grammar as well. We're also using Michael Clay Thompson's grammar program, and I'll show you guys that as well. And then I'm going to show you some other things that I'm doing. What I do, this is, like, for instance, this is a page that we haven't gotten to yet, okay? But here are my notes for what I need to teach on this page. So the most common words that are gone over on this page is one, once, and done. And so what the notes that I wrote is, we already have a word one, W-O-N, in English. So the number had to be spelled differently. So that's why one, O-N-E, is spelled the way that it is. And then adding a D before one makes done. And then for once, putting a C before the E in one has the C make the S sounds. That's why it's once. Because a child who needs explicit instruction wouldn't automatically know how to pronounce O-N-C-E. It's okay, does it make, is the C making the K sound, or is the C making the S sound? And I love that this program, it teaches explicitly when to use the S sound versus when to use the K sound. Here's another thing. The most common words on this page are word and work. And then for word, it says crazy W. Again, when a W comes before an O, R murmured diphthong, the song of or changes to So usually OR would be or. But because it has a W that comes in front of it, it changes from or to And so I love that I can just explicitly teach that, because again, children that aren't dyslexic, they would just implicitly begin to understand those rules. But because my children are dyslexic, we have to explicitly go over those rules and explicitly teach those rules. And it's been a great program. It's funny because I actually had this program on my shelf for years, and I just hadn't pulled at it. I hadn't pulled it down, and I'm so glad that I waited, because if I had done it with them at the kindergarten level, you're not really supposed to do the grammar work at the kindergarten level. And so I'm glad I waited until they were in second grade, because I can teach the grammar along with it. So we're killing two birds in one stone. And why that's important is when you have children that are dyslexic, they really have to understand grammar and language arts really, really well, especially if they're like my kids are dyslexic and dysgraphic, so we use a lot of software. And so as they go into speech to text software, they have to say comma, period, exclamation point. So they have to really understand the grammar rules if they're going to be dictating to the software. Also, when you're writing, when your spelling's not that great, you have to make sure that everything else is perfect. And so that's what I'm finding, especially with my eldest, is that he's coming along in his spelling, but his grammar is phenomenal. He is way above grade level to how he does with grammar. And so I'm really happy with the explicit grammar instruction that I've been giving him, as well as what's embedded in the programs that we use, because it allows for his writing to flourish. Another thing that my kids are doing is keeping writing journals, and I'm going to show you guys this Faster Fox's journal. Keep in mind, she's 6 years old. She's going to be turning 7 soon, but right now she's 6 years old. And what we have her do is whenever she reads a book, these are books that she reads independently or listens to an audiobook, she will write some information about the book. Like, let me show you guys. What she'll write is, I'm slowly teaching her APA citation, so she'll write the name of the book and then the author. And then we'll also put a little picture of the book's cover in here. And then she'll draw a picture, and then she'll dictate the summary to me. And I love how her dictation has really increased. Like, first, her pictures have really gotten better. Like, this is Chicka Chicka Boom Boom. And we didn't have to write a summary. I didn't have her write a summary about that because really it's Chicka Chicka Boom Boom. But she read it. But for instance, this is a book that she read for her history and technology and astronomy course. So she had to read that book. So we put it in here, and then she drew a picture. And this was her summary that she had me dictate. So she did a phenomenal job with the book summary. And this is one that she did recently. She read this Fancy Nancy at the Museum book, and she still has to write her dictation. She just did this on Friday, so she still has to write her APA citation up there. But this was her picture that she drew, and I thought that that was very good because she was basing it off of this page in the book. And so that's, you know, Nancy and Bree and the bus driver, and a pretty good picture of the bus. And then what she did was she dictates to me the summary, so that's her summary. And then I also asked her Bloom taxonomy's questions about the story. So to just give you a feel for the types of questions I asked, I asked her, why did Bree not feel well? And she was able to let me know that it was because the road was bumpy, because that's something that was pointed out in the book, that the bus ride was really bumpy, and then Bree wasn't feeling well. And so she was able to associate, well, she's probably not feeling well because she was getting car sick from the bus ride. That's important because a child that's not comprehending, or they're not following the story, they may think that, oh, she, you know, got the flu, or she just had a tummy ache. But she was able to associate it with what was happening in the book. Another question I asked, why did they go to the museum? And my daughter's response was so they could see lots of art. And I asked, do you think it's important for kids to see art? And she said yes. And I said, why? Because I want her to begin to learn to explain her answers. And she said, so they can make art and so they can be creative. And I thought that that was a really good response for a 6-year-old, because that's not, the book never said why they were going to the museum. And so she was able to deduce for herself that they were probably going to this museum to see art, and she knew it was an art museum and not a science museum because of the way that the teacher was dressed. The teacher was dressed like an artist. Okay, so she realized that that's probably why they were going to the museum, because again, in the museum, it doesn't talk about all the stuff that they saw in the museum. Just kind of that it was, you know, fancy, and it has one page of some things that they saw. But she was able to, you know, realize, okay, this is an art museum, as opposed to some of the other types of museums that, you know, we've gone to. And for her to, again, be able to understand that viewing art and seeing what other people have done leads to your own creative expression, I thought that was really good answers. And that's why I use Bloom taxonomy-based questions in our critical thinking and language arts, because I want them to start to think really deeply about the work that they're doing. So again, this is another part of what we do for reading and language arts. This is my daughter's book. There's some blank pages at the front just because we're going to do a table of contents later. But that's what we are doing for reading. Again, this is a second grade program that we're doing, or we're doing this for second grade, for gifted dyslexics. And that's important because my kids are grade skipped. So age-wise, the Wonder Twins would just be starting first grade. And so they're actually in second grade this year. So that's why it's kind of important for you guys to know the gifted part, because I would not expect this level of work out of first graders. And I wouldn't be asking them to do this as first grade. If they wanted to, like when she did a couple of these pages last year, but it was at the end of last year, so she was pretty much functioning at the second grade level at that point. So this is some of the work. Yeah, she did this in June, and you guys know we school year round, so she was technically just starting second grade, and that was her first entry, where she did the picture. Her summary was a little bit shorter, but she started to do the citation in the book. So that's how we're doing reading language arts. I'll do a separate video on how we're doing grammar specifically with Michael Clay Thompson, but I'm going to hit that a little bit later. But wanted to give you guys that. Hope this helps. This is Dr. J, and I'm out. Bye-bye.